Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Diverge podcast. In this episode, we look back on a mild and fast edition of the Atta Extreme. We talk about the move to time parity between the elite women's and elite men's races at the Cape Epic, which of course means shortened stages. If you want to break it down to the nuts and bolts of it, a little bit more complicated, but we're going to go through all of that. And it's controversial, isn't it? And then we look at discuss the gravel burn and their announcement of their burn camps. They will be doing looped stages and not moving every single day in 2026 for their second edition of the race. Makes sense, doesn't it? Seems pretty obvious in hindsight. And you got to think, with the troubles they had in year one, they really should have known a little bit better. But we'll get to that in due course. We're going to start off with the Atta, the 2026 Momentum Medical Scheme Atta Extreme, presented by Biogen, to give it its full name, was the 20th edition of the race, and it was probably the easiest edition, to be fair. Maybe the 2021 edition, which took place in August at the end of winter because of COVID. You could argue that one was maybe a little bit easier, but looking at the times, looking at not only the winning time, but times more generally, I think it's pretty clear to see that this year's edition was definitely faster. The mild weather helped, of course, but the change to the first 45 kilometers or so of the route certainly helped. It was described as pan flat by some of the riders, elite riders, of course. I think for normal people, those climbs in Chandelier always a bit of a rude awakening, though the surfaces were really good in Chandelier as well. So it was fast riding in Chandelier, even for those first 10 kilometers or so, 15 kilometers. Once we got out of Chandelier through to Waterpoint 1, which was only 20 kilometers in, the top men did that in 40 minutes, which was bang on the expected time. They got to Waterpoint 2 in just under an hour and a half, so really fast. Big group went through there in both the men's and the women's races. The men's race, I think we were looking at 30-odd riders in that group. Tristan Norkier was the one rider who had to stop just before that. He says about 6 kilometers before the Waterpoint, he had to stop to plug a puncture. So he was chasing, he didn't catch the group before the Waterpoint, had to stop and change his front wheel. And he had a long day of chasing after that. And because the group was so big, once the climbing started, leaving the Saffron River Waterpoint at the 40-kilometer mark, the climbing up towards the King of the Mountain hotspot at 50 kilometers, it was pretty tough going for Tristan there, working his way through the field. At the sharp end, though, Mark Pritson went over the top of the King of the Mountain in first place with Vessel Buerta and Alan Hatherley right behind him. He then sort of inadvertently forced the split. The rest of the pack were within, well, the main contenders at least, were within 10, 15 seconds of him, but there must have been a bad puncture, I think, by Jakob Houtman. He definitely had a very bad puncture, ended up having to walk out of the cliff with a broken wheel. So I think potentially Jakob's puncture, we never spoke to him, his puncture must have happened right up near the top of that climb. He must have been close to the front of that group, and that maybe forced a bit of a split. There were a couple of other punctures there as well, including by the European marathon champion Andreas Seewald, but Seewald was able to ride his way back to the group. He just bombed it and got underway again quickly, but nobody else managed to get back to that group apart from Travis Steadman, who latched on pretty soon after the top. He was with them through the whole of the Atta Cliff. Mark Pritson said he didn't really push the pace that much through the Atta Cliff. They took it quite easy, riding safely, so they were surprised that nobody else got back to them just before they got to Bonnydale and they exited the cliff. Steadman sat up to take a feed, to eat something, both hands off the bars, and had a pretty spectacular crash. He managed to finish the race, no ill effects from that. Felix Stelly, Mark Britson's Honeycomb 226's teammate, also crashed. Not sure where that happened. He cracked his helmet. His crash, to be honest, probably seemed a little bit worse from what Honeycomb have posted about it. But he's still down to ride the Trail Seeker next weekend on the 31st of January in the Bangkok Valley. So he can't be feeling too bad after that. Travis Steadman as well, not feeling too bad after it. But I think the way he rode after the crash, the adrenaline was definitely surging. And then it seemed like he just reached the end of the adrenaline. And the last hour looked pretty tough for him. So leaving the Kloof, then it was Alan Hatherley, Mark Pritson, and Wessel Botha together. Wessel, of course, had won from a 3-up sprint back in 2021 when he beat Alex Miller and Marco Hubert. So that was a situation that Wessel must have been pretty happy about. On the climb out of Bonnydale, it's quite a long climb, steep in places as well. It's usually where you really start to bake in the sun at the Atta. And Andreas Seewald managed to bridge back up, make it 4 at the front. Tristan O'Keefe had worked his way through the groups. He was 2 minutes down, leaving Bonnydale, and remained 2 minutes down at Waterpoint 4, which there was then about 40 kilometers to go, maybe a little bit over 40 kilometers, about 45 kilometers to go. O'Keefe's efforts, though, told on him, and he was never able to bridge to those top 4. And there was a bit of a game of cat and mouse until they passed through the big dip, the final big dip down to the river. And that's the penultimate climb of the race, about 20 kilometers to go just before the final water point. And we kept thinking, when is the attack going to come? Because it was clear that Alan Hatherley was going to attack. Everybody was watching him. The other 4 riders were watching him. And when he came, he just sort of rode off the front, accelerated off the front of that group. Mark Pritson put in a big effort to try to close him down, but eventually had to sit down and let him go. Wessel Botha came around, and Wessel and Mark worked together to try to limit those losses over the top of that first climb. It looked like Andreas Seewald was going to pop there completely, but 4 kilometers later, he was back and actually leading that group, driving that chase. At that stage, Hatherley had about 35 seconds or so on the chase group of 3. And victory didn't look assured because it was into a headwind, it was corrugations, it was tough going, but yeah, he's not the double world champion for nothing. And he just dug in, gritted his teeth, and drove for home. Eventually, Mark Pritson struck out on his own. He managed to reduce the gap down to 23 seconds on the finish line, but you kind of feel Alan probably coasted in a little bit, which contributed to that gap dropping from about a minute to just 23 seconds. Wessel Botha crossed the line in 3rd place, just under a minute down. Andreas Seewald was 4th, and Tristan O'Keefe was 5th. We spoke to them, of course, after the race, and here they are, starting with the 2026 Hell of the South champion on not a particularly hellish day, seeing as the temperature never rose over 30 degrees. It's Alan Hatherley starting it off, followed by Mark Pritson, Wessel Botha, Andreas Seewald, and Tristan O'Keefe rounding them out. Alan, talk us through today. Tactical at times until you eventually put the hammer down on that second to last climb.
Yeah, brutal race as always out here. I think I've done this race 3 times. First time, paid the bill, learning the patience lesson, and clearly got it right last year. And then just took the risk and went again this year. Waited all the way till near the end, and still had the matches to make it count. Put a proper attack on the second to last climb, and just solo through to the finish. It was a bit empty, so I was a bit nervous of making it all the way to the line, because I knew there was a solid group for the podium today, and I'm just happy to break free and stay away and do the back-to-back.
What was it like on those final kilometers? It's very corrugated. It's tough to tough to put the power down when you feel like you almost empty.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the hardest point of the whole race, to be honest. You know, there's a little bit of a headwind as well, and you can kind of see home, but it just kind of never really comes. It's just yeah, a long haul, 10 minutes of suffering pretty much along that false flat before you drop into the finish. But yeah, survival as always out here.
And how do you feel this sets you up for the year?
Yeah, it's a great season opener. I mean, the level is always incredibly high, and you know, you have to be in really good shape to do a good result here. So yeah, I'm really happy with the shape. It was a really good test here at the end to see how the fatigue resistance is, and yeah, I'm off to Alula next week, so looking forward to a good tour there and starting off the season in a way like this is always positive. So yeah, really exciting for what's to come.
Mark, what difference do you think that changed first 40 kilometers made? It made it look like you guys rode pretty steady there, but effectively pretty fast.
Yeah, no one really knew it was coming, so I think everyone was holding back a little bit. The pace was quite slow, so when we got to the KOM, it was not like Atta was. When we got to the KM, we were quite fresh. So when we got to the top, it was like, oh, that's it, you know. So it's a lot easier now, getting to the com and all that. So it made the race a little bit more, yeah, I'd say more tactical, heading up towards the com. And then from there on out, luckily that climb was hard enough to split the race.
And then you obviously must have made it hard up there because you took the com as well.
Yeah, I told myself I'm not going to sprint for it, but yeah, then I saw when I accelerated just a little bit that no one came with, so I thought might as well just take it. I was there, so but yeah, I didn't hurt myself doing it, so that was the most important thing.
And then going into the second half of the race, once you hit the gravel roads again, those they're not rollers, they're like proper climbs, and it hurts.
Yeah, they mini mountain passes, going up those rollers. So yeah, no, it was hard. And then yeah, Alan upped the pace on the second to last climb. It was just a little bit too hard for me to follow, so I sat on Vessel's wheel, and yeah, we worked together nicely over the top. And then on the final climb, I put it in the effort, and then yeah, we saw Ellen up ahead, so we thought maybe there's a chance to get back. We got close, but yeah, Ellen had a really good race, and yeah, I'm not too upset to get second to me.
And you know, it's a good way to start your year as well. Strong results and really strong performance there.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel really good coming to the finish. Normally at Atta, I'm man down, laying on the floor, and this year, yeah, I feel good, you know. And I still had some legs at the end as well, which was a really good sign for the epic stages that are quite long. So yeah, I'm happy with the work that I've done in December. Now we got 2 months to the big goal.
Vessel, yeah, a tactical race, a very fast race this year. I think you said you were expecting that.
Yeah, I think the cool weather and the faster, easier run up to the KM climb definitely delivered that. I was surprised when our group got away because I didn't feel like we went too hard over the KM climb, but yeah, super positive race for me. New team, new equipment, and yeah, all good signs for the season to come.
And good teamwork as well. It looked like Johan van Zyl did a lot of work early on for you as well. Was that a plan or?
Not really a plan, but I think yeah, it worked out well. Just having numbers in the front, and Johan is a good wheel to follow there up Atta Kloof. And yeah, I think the team can be happy with the result today.
And personally, tell us about once you guys got away through the Atta yeah, like hard work. Some big names there, and obviously like Alan's you know it's going to come, that attack, like everybody's kind of watching him on that second to last climb, but yeah, not much that could be done there.
Yeah, I was quite cautious all the time, like rolling through but not committing properly because I knew somewhere where Alan's going to attack. And yeah, it's a super hard when he went, but after he attacked, the gap stayed quite close, and then Mark just distanced me after the last climb. So it's a bit of a drag race coming into a finish, but yeah, I think top 3 is within a minute. So yeah, super close racing, and yeah, happy.
Set you up well for the years as well, and looking forward to Tankwa Trek now in a couple of weeks' time too.
Yeah, for sure. I think a good result here is always motivating and good signs for the year to come. So yeah, just building from here.
Andres, was that everything you expected it to be?
Well, not really. No, I did not expect to be that good in shape and go with the front. And yeah, I'm quite happy about the result, even with the puncture and coming back and catching the group. It was not ideal. So in the end, I could not fight for the podium really. Yeah, but in total, I'm happy. Yeah, made a stupid mistake in this longer rocky downhill from the KOM climb, I think. Yeah, but it happens in the beginning of the season. And, yeah, I'm happy and great race.
What did you think about the roughness of the terrain, especially there after the KM climb?
Yeah, in average it was. In the end, it was also a lot of rolling gravel, but also a lot of rough semi-single track, double track. But you had to choose always one line, and yeah, and then in the hardest downhill, the classic pinch flat happened to me, and yeah, it reminds me for the season to stay calm in the downhills, and yeah, a good season opener for me.
Justin, a bit of a difficult start to the Attacross for you, puncturing just before water point 2. Long chase then after that. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I think like 6 k's before that first feed, water point 2. Yeah, I just felt the whirlwind going flat, and yeah, I felt it was on the rim on one of the corners, and I didn't even blow off, or I just had to stop and couldn't find it, and then I had to bomb it and then search for the hole, and then it took me quite a while to find the hole, and then plugged it, and then got to the tech zone, changed the wheel, and it was literally from 40 k's to the finish, just chasing all alone.
Catching some riders, passing some riders, which obviously makes you feel like you're making progress. But you never really got back into contention. It was kind of 2 minutes to the leading group until they started to pull away.
It's like you said, it's quite difficult. From where I started actually catching the rear of the bunch, I started catching them just as we went up the KM. So you catch guys, but you can't actually just pass all of them because it's a single track and it's downhill, and so you have to take your chances, and I just went all in the kloof, and then tried to manage a bit on the open roads, and the last hour just went all in. But it was quite a lonely race. I think the first 4 guys on the last hour was quite a headwind, so they probably worked together, and I was alone from 40 k's until the finish. So wasn't ideal.
Tell us about that first 40 kilometers. What was it like in the group? Smoother roads. Even though it wasn't maybe like all on pace, but it was still like pretty fast going. Like you ticked off those first 40 kilometers pretty efficiently.
Yeah, it was actually way faster than I thought, and way faster than previous years. I think normally previous years, if we got to the second feed, it was an hour 50, hour 55. Then we knew the pace was on. But I think this year was just over an hour and a half, and it was absolutely pan flat, and no one wanted to ride in front, because why would you want to ride in front the first 40 k's on the flat road? So if I would prefer the previous year's routes. It makes it way harder. That first 40 k's is quite boring now.
And then going through the Attacross kloof, what was the kloof like this year?
I must say it was quite rough, but also it was, I think, must have been a little bit of rain over the past few days, because it was wetter than I thought, and the KM downhill was rougher than previous years. I think there was quite a few bigger ditches, and actually because I started catching the guys there, and I saw a few guys, one walking with the bike and puncturing, and I think I saw like 4 guys on the side of the road. So the downhill was definitely a bit rougher than previous years.
In the women's race, Hayley Preen was the dominant performer of the day and took home the title. I think it's a victory that's been a while coming, and everybody's sort of seen it on the horizon for Hayley, but it's great that she has started the year with a big win like that. In a mountain bike race, I think it's probably fair to say that gravel is her stronger discipline. she is not the biggest fan of the very technical stuff, which Attacquas, of course, is a strange one because although it's all Jeep track and gravel roads, it is very technical in the Attacquas Kloof, and the climbs in the Attacquas have always infamously been very technical as well. So in the women's race, top 10 riders made it through Waterpoint 2 together. They included Roxy Kemp, Chloe Bishop, Felicitas Geiger, and Yolandi de Villiers was there as well, plus the main three contenders, Hayley Preen, Samantha Sanders, and Bianca Hall. Shortly after that water point, when they started climbing, Yolandi let the top sort of bunch go. Chloe Bishop decided to stay with her. She told me yesterday at the Epic launch, which in hindsight she says was a mistake. She was feeling good enough to go with him, so she let the top sort of 6 or so riders, which included Sarah Hill as well at that point, go. And Hayley then took the Queen of the Mountain hotspot prize, put in a big dig over the top, built herself a nice buffer, which was all part of her plan. Descended safely through the Attacquas Kloof and was pretty happy when Samantha Sanders and Bianca Hall caught her leaving the kloof. The three of them then worked together well for about 25 kilometers or so on the rolling roads back towards Pine Creek Grootbrak. And then with Hayley says about 30 kilometers to go. So I presume then on the first climb after the Reiterbos aid station, which was also the second feed zone, not the toughest climb in that part of the course, but she had already proved to be the strongest climber in the women's race. She rode away there and managed to ride in to a very solid, very impressive victory. Time trialed in for just under 30 kilometers, or around 30 kilometers into victory. She beat Samantha Sanders by 3 minutes and 29 seconds in a time of 5 hours and 33 minutes, which is the closest anybody has come to Annika Langvat's course record, which is 5 hours and 25 minutes. The men's record, of course, tumbled completely, with Alan Hatherley setting a new benchmark of 4 hours and 25:10, but it's not considered a new record because of the significant changes to the course. So that's the benchmark to beat for next year. Back to the women, though. Samantha Sanders was second behind Preen. Bianca Hall was third, 5 minutes 34 behind Preen. Felicitas Geiger, a privateer, lives in Stellenbosch, German, former junior world champion. She was fourth, 12 minutes down, and Marlene Sear was fifth, rounding out the podium places, the expanded podium places at the Attacquas Extreme, 16 and a half minutes down. So I think what we can take from that is that there are some riders in very good form early in the season. I don't think we will see Alan Hatherley again in a marathon race in South Africa this year. Seems very unlikely. He'll be going to the Lula Tour at the end of the month, so he's not at the Trail Seeker. But Mark Pritson in great shape, Wessel Botha in great shape, adapting well to his new bike. The Singer Racing guys looking strong as well. We're seeing a bit more of Andreas Seewald and Martin Frey, Simon Stibian and Jakob Hartmann over the coming months as they dial up for the Cape Epic in March. But I think, Insect Science can be pretty happy with Wessel Botha's very happy with Wessel Botha's race. Toyota Mbuko, with Tristan in the top 5, just behind him, Jaden Tolo in 6th, and then a little way down to Marco Hubert, who finished just ahead of Louis Goosen and Ignatius Dupre that came in together. They were in 13th, 14th, and 15th, I believe, or 14th, 15th, and 16th. Travis Stedman a little bit ahead of them. So Mbuko Maybe we'll have to look at their plans a little bit as it goes through the one-day races of who exactly is going to team up together. That's always the problem when you've got 6 riders, though. As Tiennis van Zyl said, though, at the water point, with so many wheels, you are going to have problems, and punctures are inevitable when you have 6 riders in the team. The women's race, though, from the women's side, as I said, Hayley Preen looks to be in fantastic form. Great news for South African cycling. Samantha Saunders and Bianca Hall, who are racing the Epic together, look pretty evenly matched there. Bianca has said she needs to do a bit more training, so I think those two will get closer together. And some of the other riders, maybe not quite where they exactly wanted to be. Some cramps. So yes, on a day that was easier than expected on the bodies. So maybe not the best signs there, but it is also race 1. I think we'll learn a bit more from the Trail Seeker next weekend. But before that, let's dive into those interviews with Hayley Preen of ChemChamp Honeycomb, Samantha Saunders of Efficient Infinity Insure, and Bianca Hall, who is now racing for Leert and Sani to see, of course.
Hayley, tell us about that first 40 kilometers, the changed up route. How did that affect the racing in the women's race?
It was exciting. The bunch stayed together for much longer, which is cool. The pace was higher. To be honest, I don't know the route too well. I've only done it once before. But, it was very cool. I remember that rocky climb from last year, and it was barely rideable. I don't think I rode up it. So it was nice to have a smooth track, and I really liked it.
And then going up the Queen of the Mountain climb, looked like you got a little bit of a gap there. Obviously climbing really well, and then managed to keep it clean down through that cliff, which isn't an easy feat either.
So that was kind of my plan. Ideally, I wanted to have a gap going over the top in front, so then I could take my time going downhill, and they could catch me on the down. So I wasn't riding on my own into the headwind after that. And that's exactly what happened. Literally, they caught me as we got into the smooth Jeep track afterwards. So I think it was perfect. I took it really easy down, and it also just showed that I was stronger on the climbs, which helped later on.
And then how did you manage to get away from Bianca and Sam?
I think at about 30 or just over 30 kilometers to go, there was quite a nice little climb. And again, I just kept pushing, and I was like, well, I'll try. If they catch me, and then I'll try again. But I managed to hold it until the line. And
you said you felt strong coming into the line, despite, that last, 15, 20 kilometers is really tough. Corrugated roads, a little bit of a headwind. Yeah, so after a long day.
Headwind, rolling hills, but long rolling hills. But I felt really strong today. I remember last year I died a million deaths. This year I was super strong, I think, until the finish. And I think that's maybe why my time was so much faster than last year.
And really happy, of course, to take the victory. It's a big victory, and it sets up your season nicely to start off with a win too.
I'm really happy with it. It also shows that my form is there. I did a little bit of unconventional training over December holidays, but it's still a long season, so I'm happy with that, and it's good to go into the rest of the season with confidence.
You've got some long races coming up as well, so good, tough 120 kilometers under the belt is good for that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is honestly the hardest Atta I've done. Shots were fired proper. Hayley was just phenomenal today, really strong. Dictated the pace right from the start, really. She was for sure the strongest lady, and the strongest lady definitely won. Going up the QOM, I just felt the pace, and I knew I'm going to blow up if I try and maintain this. So kind of had to just settle down, but it all regrouped again. Just going over those rollers after the kloof. Again, it was just there was quite a hectic headwind, which was a new one for me. It was a tough race. I was really glad to get away from Bianca and hang on to second.
Tell us about the women's racing at the moment. It must be really cool to see Haley and Bianca
Yes,
stepping up.
of course. I mean, it's just great to race. It's so cool that we have some depth of talent, and it's also great that these girls line up and bring the hurt.
And how does this set you up for your year?
Well, Atta is the first race of the season. It's the leg opener, and it's also great because you can kind of see what you need to work on. I have Tankwa coming up with Vera, so yeah, there's definitely some work to be done before then. But yeah, I love Atta. I love doing it. I love dry land events. But yeah, it's a really great way to start the season.
You're probably the only person that was upset that it was cooler today.
To be honest, I didn't mind it because in the Lowveld, we just haven't had hot weather. We've just had rain, a lot of rain. So I haven't done the usual heat adaptation riding that I do. I kind of had to even go sit in the sauna. So this weather was great.
Bianca, first race of the season. Was the Attakwas what you expected it to be?
Yeah, it's my first one. I decided last minute to come through also to do it. It didn't disappoint. I suffered properly today, and I think I was actually quite lucky with the weather, and they've evidently made it easier, but it wasn't. It was super hard for me.
A tough way to start as well. It sounds like Sam was saying. Haley kind of made it tough when the route got tough on that big climb. She put the pace on and then kind of dictated the racing a bit.
Yeah, I think between Sam and Haley, they were super strong today. I was sort of just like yo-yoing off the back the whole day. But made it hard for myself. They were so quick up the climbs, and I'd fall off the back and then I'd drag myself back to them. So it finally cracked just before the last water table. So yeah, she was good.
And looking forward to the year. So a good benchmark of where you are and sort of where you need to be.
Yeah, it's a good wake up call. Like I've got lots to do to get on the pace, which is also cool. And there's lots of room for improvements early in the season, and there's lots of races to come. So yeah, I'm excited.
All of these early season races build towards the Cape Epic, and for this year, in an effort to unlock faster, more competitive, and increasingly visible elite women's race, the Epic has taken the decision to move towards time parity, which essentially ends up meaning that the longer stages of the race are shortened by 23%. So for this year, the prologue falls within what they deem an acceptable time difference for the expected winning times, as does the grand finale, which is an interesting one because this year's grand finale is a hell of a tough stage. 58 kilometers, 2,150 meters of climbing. Yeah, that's not a nice way to finish an 8-day bike race, even if it is on Stellenbosch's fantastic trails. The women in the race seem to be are publicly very positive about the change, and it does make sense. They will receive probably an extra hour of recovery time because of it. Logistically, there are some issues, of course. It does mean that what the race is calling diversions will take place on the out and back stages. So that is stage 1, 2, 4, and 6 of the 2026 race, with stage 7, of course, being an out and back. But the women will be racing the same general course as everybody else. So diversions, shortcuts, you might say, if you were being less politically correct. I think that's probably what everybody's going to end up calling them when it's not on the official PR line. And then on the point-to-point stages, stage 3 and stage 5, the women will have remote starts. So that means they'll be starting at Veltefrede farm on stage 3, which is in Bonnie Vale. That takes off 20 odd no, it's a little bit over 20 kilometers, 25 kilometers from that day stage. Still 107 kilometers, so on stage 3. So not an easy day, especially if it ends up being northwesterly wind into Middle Pass and Grayson, because it's a drag uphill all the way from when you cross the Sonderend River. It's all uphill to Middle Pass. Not steep, but enough that it will hurt. And then on stage 5, they started Beaumont Wines and Bot River. The plan there is for the women to finish ahead of the men. That is the only one where they've got sort of a time schedule of how they want these things to work out that they've publicly communicated. They haven't said what time of the morning that is. Probably going to mean like a 6:30 start, which has its own issues. So I think, given that the World Series starts in South Korea in May, this was the year that the Absa Cape Epic really could have pulled out all the stops to bring the best cross-country riders in the world to the race. And I think you have to say that the success or failure of this is going to be judged on how exciting the racing is. And a big part of that is who is racing. So they haven't announced that yet. I think it's pretty clear that Candice Lill is coming back to the race. She has already said she'll be racing with Alessandra Keller. So that's two big names from the cross-country world. But with all due respect to Candice, who obviously we all love as South Africans, as a rider with South African sponsors, all South African sponsors apart from eFort, you've got to think she needs to race in South Africa to keep those sponsors happy. So it's maybe not the decision. It's not the race pulling, it's her being pushed by external decisions. I personally, and I think I'm not alone in that, would have loved to see Evie Richards, Yolanda Neff, even obviously Sammy Maxwell sitting out. But if that wasn't the case, somebody like her, it really, I think there's going to be a little bit of disappointment at the field when it is announced, not being able to speak to it too much, but knowing who it is. Yeah, I think it's gonna be hard to make it the sell as the sharpened spectacle when it is a lot of the usual suspects of Epic Series Elite Women's racing taking part, which isn't to say that it's not going to be exciting. Maybe those changes do lead to a more exciting race, a more aggressive race. The time will only tell on that. And I think what we have seen in the past is a dominant team like Annika Langvaart and Sophia Gomez Villafan last year get a lead and then be in a position to not have to race particularly aggressively. And that sort of like crushes the spirit of the race. 2024, when Candice and Mona Mizenwala really took the fight to Ghost Factory Racing, even though Ghost won every single stage, they were really close, and we had sprint finishes, and it was captivating viewing. And until the last day, when whatever virus Mona was battling eventually just drained her so much, and they ended up losing 5 minutes. It still is the closest ever women's race in the Cape Epics history. But until then, it was very much a live race. I mean, 3 minutes has been turned around on the last day in the men's race. So victory was not assured for Anne Terpstra and Nicole Collar at that point. So if we have a race like 2024, that would be exciting. If we have a race like 2023, when the leaders' jerseys changed hands 3 times, that would be fantastic. I think that would be a success for this shortening. But of course, that does come down to the athletes as well, and what level they're on. If they're on a generally good level, it will obviously, or generally similar level, it will make that racing more exciting, and hopefully we'll see racing for minor places as well further down, and increased broadcast, increased exposure would hopefully include telling those stories too. So there's some things to be positive about, but at this stage, there's some things to be very positive about. But at this stage, the proof of the pudding will be in the racing in March, and we will probably know by the 16th, by stage 1, or the 17th at the latest, if it has been successful or not. Looking at the route a little bit more closely, 560 kilometers, 13,350 meters of climbing. That is actually more climbing per kilometer than the general course. Not by a hell of a lot, but by a bit. 23.83 meters of climbing per kilometer, compared to the general course being 23.19 meters of climbing per kilometer. Given that it was over 26 meters of climbing per kilometer in 2025. This epic route is long, but not particularly steep. So I think that's maybe going to suit a different kind of rider a little bit. And it's a route that I know Tristan Norquer and the Mbuko, who are now, to give them their full name, Toyota Specialized Mbuko, they're very looking forward to it, and they think it's gonna suit them. It'll suit Matt Beers and Keegan Swenson as well, of course, too. And from mountain biking, we need to pivot into gravel. Of course, Gravel Burn and the Cape Epic inexorably linked by Kevin Vermaak and half the former Epic team being at Gravel Burn, which is why you would think they would have done what they've done in year 2, in year 1, and that is go to race villages that don't, or a route that features race villages used for more than one night. For 2026, the second edition, the race, we don't know the distances yet. The race will start in Graafrenet and race to Blauwater for stage 1. Stage 2 is an out and back stage, starting and finishing at Blauwater. Stage 3, Blauwater to Merino. Stage 4, out and back around Merino. Stage 5 to Ganswali. Stage 6 to Shamwari. And then a stage in Shamwari, which is interesting as well, with the wildlife concerns there in and around Shamwari. Entries to the second edition of the Gravel Burn open on the 3rd of February. They will, of course, have another kindling event, which is open to everybody in April. So people will get a chance to ride around Graafrenet and Blauwater, experience probably most of stage 1 and stage 2. I would imagine. I don't think there's that much that they can change to the gravel roads around there. They will have to double up on those roads. So you'll be able to get a feel for that in April if that is something that tickles your fancy. That's quite far ahead still, much closer to the present. It's the Trail Seeker, the Ford Trail Seeker in Banguk Valley next weekend, 31st of January, and that's going to be an exciting one to look forward to. We can draw some more conclusions as to how the season is going, how the season is building up towards that Cape Epic in March after the Trail Seeker. Thank you very much for tuning in to this episode of the show. Until next time, cheers.